Hey guys, welcome to today's dinner recipe, and I hope you're ready for this because this is going to be so good. Today's recipe is called Farmhouse Pottage. This is one of the very first recipes I saw in a cookbook growing up, I think when I was in primary school, and this recipe stuck with me for years, okay? And now I'm going to be showing my elevated version of Farmhouse Pottage. Here is an introduction of all the ingredients to be using in Farmhouse Pottage. The first one on the list is honey beans, okay? This is what it looks like. It's brown. I love honey beans because it's sweet, right? It doesn't require so much for it to taste really good. You can use white beans if that's what you have. Next, we have our multi-purpose roasted pepper mix, okay? You already know what this is, and if you don't, please check the recipe for the jollof, okay? Now we also have our plantains, yes. And the idea behind Farmhouse Pottage is that these are things that usually a farmer would have because he has grown all of them, and that's why it's called Farmhouse Pottage. I just showed you the seasoning powder, and of course, we're going to be using onions. I'm also going to be incorporating my scent leaf. So this is where I also added my own twist, okay, to the original recipe. I'm using scent leaf and I'm using ugu leaves. The original recipe I saw in that cookbook uses only ugu leaves, and you also see some other things that I'm incorporating into mine. Next, I'm going to be using some smoked Titus fish or smoked mackerel fish. As you can see, all you need to do is to split that open, take out the head and remove the bones. And of course, it's because you don't want people having to choke on bones while eating. I'm going to be adding some crayfish, okay? This is ground crayfish. It's always very good for your pottage. I'm adding some palm oil, right? And notice I'm calling it pottage, okay? So for what we make, we call it pottage. Some people call this porridge, but that's not the correct term for what we are cooking, okay? Now we have our Peppersoup spice. So this is another way I also upgraded that recipe. And of course, to our main guy, that's the yam. So we have our yam. This is actually very big, okay? We're going to be using that in our cooking. Now let's go ahead. First thing you want to do is to start with the one that takes the longest to cook, and that's the beans. So I have my pots on fire. I've added water, and then I'm going to pour my washed beans. Now I should already mention that the beans has been picked, okay? You already pick the beans first of all to remove dirt, stone, the shards from the beans before you go ahead to wash it, and now we're putting that into our pot of water. Now to speed up the process of cooking, especially for beans, if you're not using a pressure cooker, what you want to do is to add slices of onions, as you can see me do here. Again, onions serves as a catalyst to speed up the cooking process. The enzyme in the onions helps to soften the beans. So if you were to cook your beans for 30 minutes, onions is going to reduce that cooking time to about 20 minutes. Now, I've heard some people say they can use baking soda, and that's actually very true. I know if you remember growing up, there's something they call account that people use in beans. Some people have said that wasn't healthy, and that's why most people stopped using that. However, baking soda equally works in making your beans really soft. You can just add a little of that and continue. Now back to our yam. This is the yam we're going to be using. I'm showing you the process of cutting a tuber of yam, slicing it, peeling off the skin, and we're going to proceed with that. Now in storing your yams, you want to make them stand on its head, right? There's the head at the bottom of the yam. So when you are storing your yam, to make it last longer, you want to make it stand on the head. And the idea behind it is that you want it to stand the same way it was uprooted, okay? That way the yam lasts for longer, doesn't go bad. I learned that hack from a yam seller that sells yam to me, and that has been such a huge hack. So you can try that out. Now I'm just peeling the skins of the yam, okay? You will notice that there's sand on the body. Again, the explanation is because it's a tuber that is taken out from the ground. That's literally how it's harvested. So you're going to cut that up. I'm going to cut that into smaller bits, as you can see me do here. Put that in my water, and then we'll proceed. Now, for some yams that usually turn black, a way to guard against this is to always put your yam after peeling straight into a bowl of water. That way you don't have it reacting with the air and then turning red or turning black. I've also found that for a cleaner workspace, I prefer to have something underneath my board when I'm slicing my yam, and I'll show you how that works. When I'm done peeling my yam, all I need to do is just to roll that all together, and there is literally no mess on my board. That is just a way I work cleaner, and I don't have to start cleaning all over again. And this is a very good hack. So you can replace that with either your baking sheet, just as I used, or you can use a nylon or something. I think it just helps to keep it cleaner and you work faster. Now I'm going to just wash those yams, take out any sand on them, okay? And this is what it should look like. It should look clean. You want to now pour out that water, put in a new one, rinse at least twice or thrice depending on how sandy the yam was, and then we can proceed. Now, this is the deboning process for our smoked mackerel fish, okay? So I'm just going to take out the head. This is actually frozen, so it's a lot harder to take it out. But if you're buying yours already just smoked fresh from the market, you wouldn't have to go through as much stress as I did here. Mine was still frozen. I should have just let it to defrost, okay? But I was going ahead with this recipe as it is. So you can see that I broke it at the middle. But what I wanted to show you was the bone, right? So you want to take out this bone. It's the major bone at the middle. But then you're also going to take out the bone at the sides of the fish. So look out for that. Now, this is a personal thing. I always take out the skin. For some reason, I won't call it an allergy, right? But whenever I taste fresh fish stew or anything that has the skin of fish, right, it just rubs me off the wrong way. It's very nauseating for me. And that's why I usually take that out. So that's just a personal thing for me. So you would notice that if I'm using fish in my meals, I always fry it till it's really, really dried. Okay, so that's just a personal thing. I just want to mention that. So in case you're wondering why I removed the skin, that's only the reason why. So if you're a lover of that, please go ahead and leave it on the fish. Now I'm just showing you that I'm removing all the bones. I'm going to break apart this fish anyways. That's why I didn't mind breaking it the way I did, just to show you how to debone your fish. So once you have it looking like this, you can now rinse and set it aside for the next step. So I decided to show the final part just for anyone who is wondering what it looks like. So you can see all the inside of the fish has been taken out. Okay, so you have the guts, all of that has been taken out, and then we have that set aside now. Next in the prepping process is our plantains. Okay, I'm going to be cutting out a few plantains. I won't be using all in this recipe. Okay, I'm going to just cut out a few. Now, if you want to ask the proportion of yam to plantain, I would say the same quantity. So I'll be using the same quantity of yam as I use for plantain. So if you have to measure that out, you already know what that means. Okay, if you're using 5 pieces of yam, you're also going to use 5 pieces of plantain. I always use them equally. If you don't like plantains, you can decide to use just yam alone, but use a little, because the whole idea of farmhouse pottage is you have all these different things, almost like someone came up and said, I want to use what I have in my freezer to make a delicious pottage. And that's how it was born. Right, now we're just going to use our knife to make a slit on that skin. Open that up, and this is what you should have. Notice the plantains are soft and really ripe. These are the perfect plantains I love to use for pottage. Some people prefer to use unripe plantain, and that equally works. So for farmhouse pottage, you can decide, okay, I want to use unripe plantains, and that would also bank so well in this dish. So I'm going to take out all the skins and show you the next step. Now that we have them taken out, I'm just going to line that up and then slice it. Again, I'm going to kind of follow the size that I used for the yam, okay, because you don't want one bigger than the other. You want to have some sort of uniformity, and that's why you can see me slice them in this size, almost the same size as the yam. And once you have this good, set this aside. We are going to the next step. I've already plucked my ugu leaves or my pumpkin leaves right from the stem, and now I'm going to be slicing it up. Notice I won't be slicing my scent leaf yet, okay? And I explained in the other class that the reason why I don't slice my scent leaf at the moment I'm not using it is because it already begins to lose its flavor and freshness. So I'm only going to slice my ugu leaves. I'm showing you how I do that, and then you can proceed to do that for your scent leaf when it's time. Again, you can always use other faster method like using your food processor or a chopper to chop that. However, if you have neither of that and you're in my class and you want to see how it's done, just take out your knife, right? Slice off the stem, the extra one, and then you can begin to just dice that nicely. You see my hand guiding that knife, but be careful so you don't cut yourself, okay? I'm just using my hand to hold down the leaves and then slice that ugu leaves as you can see me go. You're just going to keep going, okay? You don't have to be as fast as I am if you're doing this for the first time. Just keep going, slice it down. Make sure to use a sharp knife. It helps, right, to slice the leaves really evenly. And before you know it, you're good and ready. You have yourself sliced leaves. With that done, we're good and ready, and now we can set this aside. So if we decide to wash again, but if you washed it before, there really isn't any need, especially if you washed it properly. Here, I'm just showing you my scent leaves that I won't be slicing them now. I'm just going to slice them when I need them to go into the pot, okay? And now I'm going to be slicing my onions. So again, you can use your chopper for this. However, if you're using your knife, you just want to nicely dice that up. There are different ways to dice your onions. Now, if you want them big, you can dice them big. For this recipe, I don't want to see a lot of onions in it, so I'm going to dice them first as you can see here, and then just turn that over and cut them into smaller pieces. If you don't like to see onions in your food, another way to do this is just to simply blend it, okay? Blend it into a puree and it also works, right? But later you'll find out that for chefs, okay, the way you slice your onions has an effect on the food. So it's not just onions. People can cook with the same ingredients, but the food will taste different, right? So you want to watch out for that. So now we've done all the prepping, we can go ahead to cook. I'm going to be pouring my palm oil into a pan. And yes, when I'm making pottage, I love to fry my sauce first and fry it well before proceeding to adding it with the yam. Now we're going to start out with our onions first, okay? You're going to fry this, and this is one method I learned from my mom when she comes to making pottage. I always look for a particular aroma that makes me know that I'm on the right track. And that aroma you only get when the onions hit the palm oil. You fry that for a bit, and the next one is the secret, guys. Crayfish. Guys, if you've never tried frying your sauce first by frying onions and then adding your crayfish, you've never tasted one of the best sauces ever. Guys, you need to try this out. Fry that onions, fry that crayfish before you even put any other thing, either your fish, your pepper, and the difference is so clear. Now, whenever I'm making my pottage, I look forward for that signature scent. As soon as you start frying that crayfish, the whole place changes, and you will know that cooking process matters a lot in anything you're doing. Fry that for a bit. You notice that the oil is foaming, and that's because of the crayfish, right? So the oil is not bad. Now I'm just checking my beans to see how it's doing. One thing about the farmhouse pottages, you're not going to wait for the beans to be fully cooked. Remember, we still have yam to cook, right? So I'm checking it now to see how well cooked it is. Now, the thing is, you want to have the bean standing on its own, but when you press it, it's soft, okay? That shows you that it's time to put the yam. You don't want to cook it as far as agoing level, okay? The ewa agoing that is already mashed. You don't want to get it to that point. It should still look like it's standing, but really soft when you press it in. Now you can add your yams. Notice how all the yams are still looking white. That's because even when I was done peeling, I left it in that water until it was time to add it into the pot. That's exactly what I did, and you can see that the yam is looking white and really, really pleasant, okay? So you're now going to stir that together, and what you will now do is still cover this up, allow this to cook with the beans, and wait until the yam is soft. Now, if you notice that the beans has already used up most of the water, you can add a little more water, just enough to cook the yam, okay? And that's what you can see me do here. I literally added a cup of water, and then I'm just going to cover that up and allow that yam to cook till it's soft. Now let's get back to our sauce. Remember, we've been frying that onions and crayfish for about 10 to 5 minutes, okay? Do that on medium heat, okay? Don't do it on high heat. And at this point, if you can see the crayfish, take your spoon and check. It should look like it's crispy. Then you know you're good and ready to add any other thing. Once again, that foaming is because of the crayfish, not because the oil is bad. Now let's proceed. Now I'm going to add that smoked fish, and this is again my preference. The reason why I fry smoked fish is that I don't like the taste of fresh fish, okay? So it just gets me in another way. So you can decide to leave yours if you like the taste of fresh fish. Please leave yours, don't add the fish yet, okay? You can add it after you've put in the pepper sauce, okay? But for me, I'm doing this now. I'm just going to stir that together and fry. So it's frying with the onions, with the crayfish. At this point, no seasoning has been added yet. Just the natural seasoning that you have from the crayfish and the onions. Allow that to fry till it's a bit crispy, and then we're going to continue. Now the total time it's been frying should be about 20 minutes on medium to low heat. And now the pepper mix can come in. I'm using my Jollof based pepper mix. Feel free to use roughly blend pepper mix, okay? You can use the same ingredients as used for the Jollof, okay? But you can roughly blend it instead of making it smooth. This is how I wanted mine to look. So again, feel free to work on your preference and infuse that into your recipe, okay? And own it, okay? Now that we have that going, once again, you can see that it's frozen. So I'm going to reduce that heat. If it was on medium, I'll reduce it to low and allow that to nicely fry. At this point, please note you're not adding water or anything. Just use it on low heat and everything is going to defrost just fine. Also, the sauce will fry just fine, okay? It's at this point of the sauce frying that you can now add your seasoning cube. Now you can add little as you go. I'm adding mine based on experience, okay, for the quantity I'm cooking. So you want to add a bit, taste, add a bit and taste until you're satisfied with how it tastes, and then you can stop. Feel free to add salt, okay? If you want to use a mix of seasoning cube and salt, feel free. So you want to add a little bit of the seasoning cube and then add your salt if that's what you prefer. But once again, you will notice that I would not use salt in this recipe because I'm already using seasoning cube, which already contains salt. Now at this point, I'm tasting to check that first off, the pepper is well cooked, the seasoning is okay, and if it isn't, I'm going to add more seasoning. And if the pepper mix is not cooked yet, I'm going to allow that to cook some more on low heat to ensure it's low heat. And lastly, the final test is having the oil float on the pepper mix, telling you that it is good and ready. Now let's check our yam. At this point, you notice that my pepper mix is no longer cooking. I've turned it off because it's already well cooked. For our yam, it's looking soft. Notice that the water we added actually made a difference. Otherwise, if we didn't add more water at the initial stage, it will have probably started burning by now. So this is exactly what you want to get. So there's no harm with adding water as you go. Just don't add so much, right? Now you can see how soft that yam is. As soon as I put in my fork, it just broke apart. Now is when you add your plantains. Your plantain doesn't take time to cook at all. So I'm just going to pour that into my pot. And you notice it's almost the same quantity as the yam. And then peppersoup spice follows. This is about 2 to 3 tablespoons of peppersoup spice, okay? And then I'm going to stir this together, guys. The aroma and the flavors already building in this farmhouse pottage is so good, guys. Stir it well. You want all the peppersoup spice to go around the pot, right? At this point, you can add a little bit of water if your yam is not fully cooked. Otherwise, you can leave it as is and let's proceed to the next stage. As you can already imagine, the next stage is to pour in that fried, delicious sauce. Okay, you're going to pour all of that in. That is going to be infused into that. So you want that to cook with the plantain and the pepper spice you just added now, right? And then you're going to stir that together. What I'm going to do also is to add some water into that pan, just so I can add a little bit more water into that farmhouse pottage. And then you can stir everything together. Taste for seasoning, okay, to be sure that the seasoning works now. Remember, we haven't put in any seasoning for the beans and the yam. So you want to check if the seasoning from the sauce is enough. If it's not, go ahead and add your preferred seasoning and we can proceed to the next stage. Now again, you can see me tasting for what I mentioned earlier, your seasoning, tasting that it's good and ready. Now, if it's not, feel free to add a bit. Once again, please add little as you go. Don't add so much at once. You want to keep tasting and ensure that it's okay. At this point, guys, see the aroma that is going to hit your kitchen and the flavors already incorporated in this is just so good. But then we have a few more ingredients to go, so we are not done yet. Now the seasoning is going to go in. I realized I needed a little bit more, so I added that seasoning. Allow that cook. Remember, the plantain hasn't been cooked yet, so allow that cook for a little, about 10 to 15 minutes on medium heat. And now the final ingredients are coming in. You know, when your leaves come in, it means that you're about to end that cooking because your leaves do not need more than 2 to 3 minutes on heat, okay? Especially if you're using a cast iron pot. This pot is still going to keep cooking even when you've turned up the heat because it actually absorbs heat, right? So you want to turn this off. Usually I will turn it off as soon as I put in the leaves because my cast iron pot is still going to be cooking it. Now the ugu leaves went in first. If you notice I'm taking time, it's because I'm actually slicing the scent leaves now. I've washed it, now I'm slicing it, and then it's going to go right into the pot. And that's why you can see me waiting, right? I'm just over there slicing. Now I'm good and ready with my scent leaves, and just look at that. Like I mentioned, you can replace scent leaf with basil if you don't have scent leaf, okay? They belong to the same family member, so they work together. Now you're going to stir everything together. Guys, this is one of the most delicious pottage ever. It is so good. When I made this at home, people just couldn't stop eating it. Like, it is just so good. You can decide to be creative in the kind of protein you use. I use smoked mackerel fish. You can use smoked chicken. You can use beef. You can use your own preferred fish. If it's a smoked hake fish, which is your smoked panla, you can use that. Okay, everything just infuses so much flavor into that farmhouse pottage. And guys, this is what we have. Our dinner is ready and I'm serving this in the most beautiful way ever. I'm getting my moi moi leaves. I hope you still have those banana leaves ready. Okay, so get that out. wash it well, put that in your plate, and we're going to be serving this. And this is what I said about that pot. This is on my countertop, not on the gas, but it's still boiling. That's why as soon as you're using the cast iron pot, put in the leaves and just turn off the heat, because it's still going to be sizzling and boiling even when you're off the heat. Now I'm going to just take a scoop of that and put that right into that moi moi leaf on my plates, okay? So you can serve how you want. But remember, in this class, presentation is very key. You want to serve this food in a way that anybody that looks at it just says, what is this? Now, I felt the plating needed a little bit more touch, so I added those grilled fish that we did in banana leaves, remember? Yes, I added that to the top of that farmhouse pottage. And guys, dinner is ready. With that, I'm going to say enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions in the chat room. I'm going to be available to answer everything, okay? Bye.